Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 45 of the Cognitive Podcast, and we are recording here Sunday night, September 12th, with the hopes that I will really get back on schedule right now by editing this baby tomorrow and getting somewhere. In the meantime, I did just post episode 44 a day late, just like episode 43 was a day late. And as you can tell, this one's going to be called Reentry because that's what I've been trying to do, catch everything up and get my life back to normal. It was a great vacation, and you can tell when the reentry gets this complicated. There is a picture on the show notes of my beloved Eleanor just enjoying one of the couches. She's not supposed to do that. But this whole week has been kind of a not supposed to do week, and it seemed like a really representative image. Please remember that I always welcome your comments. You can comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can go to our group on Ravelry. Let's see what else you could do. Well, let's see, not much. You could listen to the rest of this podcast. I'm not going to go through my top notes where I talk about joining the listeners map, because I think most of you know that stuff by now. I will tell you I don't add people to my social media groups outside of Ravelry friends and people following on cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. I don't do that because I get a lot of hate mail, because every now and then I get a lot of spam is what I'm saying. Every now and then I will say something positive about President Biden or how this administration has improved things over the last, and then it's amazing how I get spammed on all social media. So in the fear of phony accounts, I'm not accepting people to follow me on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever. I'm sorry about that. I really am. It's just a little bit annoying to have to go through my feeds and eliminate those people. Meanwhile, on a happier note, in the warm thanks department, I'd like to thank Lisa Souza. Link to her online yarn shop is in my show notes. I wanted to thank her because she returned home on September 4th, which was coincidentally my 61st birthday. She was returning home because she was evacuated with the wonderful husband Rod and their pets because of the Caldor fire, which was burning horribly in Northern California, well, sort of north central at that point. Lisa was able to return home. The amazing thing was she was able to visit the house off and on, and she kept filling everybody's orders. And I celebrated by ordering a skein of DK weight silk Polwarth yarn, and you'll be able to see the pictures of that beautiful colorway. It's berry compote. And I bought it to match some yarn that Jasmine Knitmore gave me, and I'll get back to that when I make that sweater. But I realized the sweater I wanted to make, and a Fair Isle yoke sweater. And the colorway Jasmine gave me is called Birch, and it's a sort of beige with pink overtones. Looks amazingly like birch. I have to say this, I love paper birch. It's my favorite tree. And anyway, I realized I had nothing in my stash that would really bring out that pinkishness, but I had a lot that would clash with it. So I decided that I would celebrate Lisa's return by a little tiny order from her. I say a little tiny order. I'm trying not to order any more yarn because I am so sable, as you will hear later in this podcast. The important thing here, the reason I always promote Lisa's store Well, originally it was Squash Blossom, this amazing colorway she had. Still has. But actually, I always promote her because of things like this. She got my yarn out within seconds, I'm sure, of opening the order. So thank you, Lisa. I did get my birthday yarn, and it's spectacular, and the rest of you can look forward to seeing it very soon in another sweater. Well, it seems like a very natural transition to go from thanking Lisa Souza for sending me yarn and giving you a tantalizing glimpse of a sweater that I may be doing in the near future by going right on to the segment on what's on my hooks and needles, eh? Well, nothing is finished, but lo, there was great joy in the land of Gemma when 'twas reported that Twin Face actually placed the sacred vest into the mail. Actually, she gave it to UPS, which is even better. So it's coming towards me. That's the good news. The bad news is I'm using the needles to make my beautiful hand-spun brick. I am so grateful, though, that I got serious about tinking back on the brick when I added the extra rows unintentionally, because this week I was at a place where I could separate for the arms, and I did so. And then I looked at it and said, oh, I've still got way lots of the alpaca silk left. I think it's alpaca yak silk, actually. And I said, I'm just going to keep going with that. And it's been a blast. I've added 15 rows past the divide for the body. And then I stopped, and I'm going back to 15 rows as we speak. I have done the 15 rows on the left arm. And I have the right arm on the needles to do 15 rows in the alpaca on that. And I suspect that all segments are going to get another 5 rows. Partly this is because I tried it on, and yes, the alpaca is going across the area of my chest, my breast actually, and it looks good. And I thought, okay, it's at a slightly finer gauge than the red yarn above it, which is yak merino silk, I believe. And I overall like the way it looks. It takes a lot of guts to wear stripes if you're a bit hefty, and I'm a bit hefty, I'm not too bad. But this is just beautiful, and it's a big bulky sweater, and I said, you know what, time to get over those hang-ups. I'm 61 years old. So anyway, it looks really good. The stripe on the left arm and the stripe on the right arm is about to be begun. And after that is done, we will see about adding more to each section. We will see how much I have left. I still have a tiny skein of it, about 120 yards, hanging around. So I can afford to experiment a bit. I think when I finish the 15 rows on the right arm, I will probably put lifelines in both arms and the body so that I can use up the rest of my alpaca judiciously. You may remember that the alpacas in question are from my own herd, our late lamented Summer, and also the alive and vibrant Jubilee, who is past an age where I want somebody to grab her and shear her, because I think it will traumatize elderly Jubilee a bit too much. Jubilee, for what I can tell, is probably, well, she's older than Quechua, and Quechua is now about 20. So all of them are past typical lifespans and into extended lifespans. They can go to 35. I don't know. I don't think they will, but we'll see. They're part of the family, so they go with us if we ever relocate. When you take a pet, even livestock, you gotta take care of it. But in the meantime, Jubilee and the sole surviving very aged llama, Quechua, are living just fine in our back 40 and having good lives back there. And they're making good sweaters. It's really quite wonderful. So after this, when I get through the alpaca, I'm going to move on to the beautiful, I think it's a merino silk, and I'm really looking forward to that in the soft gray. But I'm getting a lot of length, and I'm really happy with what I'm getting on this sweater, and I just think it looks great. It feels great. It's got a beautiful hand, and it's just been enormous fun. So if you're thinking about knitting a sweater out of your hand spun, I'm over here doing the lab experiments for you, and I'm here to tell you it's a very satisfying thing to do. It's a very exciting thing to do. And you can't do it any more haphazardly than I did. I basically looked at my stash of hand spun and said, well, you look worsted weight, and you do, and you do, and you do. I'm mixing fibers, but I always knew this was going to be a hand wash project. And I do know these won't run. They've already been through the process of bathing and rinsing quite a lot. So the hand spun brick is well on its way. Will I finish it before Twin Faces vest arrives here? Don't be ridiculous. Of course I won't. So I'm actually very seriously thinking about just going back to webs at yarn.com and ordering some size 960-inch needles, and putting Twin Faces on that. Actually, she's a bit thin. I might have to go to a smaller size needle than that. In fact, actually, I don't even need 60s to make a sweater for me, I'm happy to report. 45s have been doing great. I think it's been 45. So it's 40. I'm really cutting it close. At any rate, enough of this. The vest is about to return to me and be finished, and the hand-spun brick is well on its way. The temperature blanket, remember her? Caught up. Boy, that was fun. I just took an afternoon and cranked it out. It was, I believe, Friday, where I should have been editing my episode 44, but no. I just sat there Friday night after I saw my last patient and finished my notes, and I got the bug, but also I was listening to Ravelry, so you'll hear about that shortly. So it's very caught up, and there's a picture of it from January 1st at my feet up to the present, up in my lap. It's beautiful. I love it. Everybody keeps saying, wow, it's been really hot there. No, it hasn't. The really hot color is a pinkish red called rouge. To my immense surprise, I've only done about 3 rows of it this year. And we are through the hottest part of the summer. So oddly, this summer was not quite as hot as most of our summers have been. Rouge is 101 and above. We've had summers so hot that I had to buy a straight up red, which would be 111 and above. And I fully expected to have 1 or 2 stripes of the red. So you're thinking, well, what will happen to all this extra yarn? Well, I've had a few suggestions. The Sunny Bankers have been asking for plain scarves. And I'm looking at them and going, there's a good use for it. It'll be a donation. I was thinking about going through all my yarns to find scarf colors for them. And they were asking for pretty yarns with collies back-stitched on them. What do they call it in knitting? They don't call it back-stitching. Duplicate stitch, but it's basically cross-stitch. And I thought, I could make a few clunkers out of my leftovers and just do a lace pattern at each end with paw prints. That's out there. At any rate, I'm debating, but also I do want to put a frame on this blanket. That will probably be next year's big project, when I will probably use all the leftover colors that didn't make it into this blanket to just put a 3-sided frame on it so that it hangs nicely on my bed. The actual temperature part will simply be the top of the bed. I have a queen size bed. If I had tried to make this the full width of a queen, yeah, the sad history of Gemma runs mad in 2021. So instead, the temperature part just covers the very top. It's perfect. The fit at 225 stitches in single crochet in this sport weight yarn has been perfect for my queen. Your gauge may vary. I believe I've got the hook right in front of me. What am I using? I think it's an E. Yeah, it's an E for sport weight because I wanted a slightly tighter fabric. So anyway, the temperature blanket is caught up. The wild lettuce shawl, alas, unloved, sitting on my desk. I so want to finish it because of other things that happened, which I will get to in the blather. And let's see. I've already told you my 2 favorite resources, Lisa Susie Yarns and Webs. So that takes us on to Dizzy Blondes. Well, nothing's happening there. I literally have not spun since the last episode. A strategy. I think today's strategy is a simple one. I'm floating around in distress tolerance. And we have the acronyms accepts and improves, of course. And I need to look back and see actually what I have given you over the past few months. But I'm going to go back to a simple one. And this is about mindfulness and distress tolerance. And it's a very straightforward one. if you cannot make it better, do not make it worse. When we talk about distress tolerance and mindfulness, we're always talking about making it better. We're always talking about improve the moment, wise mind accepts distraction, things like that. But there are the losing situations, and that's really where this one comes in. And I apologize because I can't remember if I've told you this one or not, but I want to bring it back here for the simple reason that when you're doing mindfulness, the other aspect is the losing situation. And we have talked about this in terms of everyday acceptance and radical acceptance, but it is also a bona fide part of overall distress tolerance. It's a very straightforward thing. Sometimes you're having a problem and you just realize you've lost this one. You try all the strategies for accepts, you try improve, you try mindfulness, you meditate, and yet you can't get anywhere. This one for me is bad thoughts at night, but it happens in a lot of strange ways. I had a patient telling me about an argument she had with her husband where he just said something unreasonable and kind of crazy. And she looked at him and just realized that what he was really doing was trying to escalate the fight. And he did it in this very public way, and he said this very histrionic, very melodramatic thing. And she just stopped and looked at him and said, I'm going to go do this. I'll be right back. And she walked away. Well, of course, when she came back, he was still boiling mad, but she wasn't. And we were talking about that. And I said, what were you doing? And she said, I don't know. She said, what I wasn't doing was taking him on. It's very messy. She's in the process of a divorce with him, and he's prone to these really dramatic, histrionic public displays of anger. And so I said to her, well, the reframe for that is radical acceptance, that you've already realized the marriage is lost, and you're saying to yourself, there is no win, that he has no motivation whatsoever to work this out with you. And so you're basically realizing there is no win. And in my case, that plays out at night. I lie in bed at night and have all my thoughts of mortality. I'm convinced this is a phase you go through as you age, that you have to come to grips with your mortality. And this is 60 was my time. I really figured I'll turn 61 and be over it. And I think what goes on is you come to a realization of what you think happens next, if anything. And so I've learned that every night, me and mortality meet up at around 2 a.m. And I have finally realized that I'm making it worse because I'm telling myself this is normal to have this happen at 2 a.m. And the idea is, well, you can't really fix your mortality. And so the other way to look at it is again, this is the compare skill. I have a lot of friends who aren't alive. I'm just grateful to be alive. And the other reality testing of you just don't know how long you get. I mean, there are, kids dying right now of COVID. So again, you realize, so this is a reasonable thought to have at my age, but at the same time, it's pretty reasonable at any age. It just gets more reasonable the more you age. And you're going to have to make a peace with it. And so the idea is, well, I can't make it better. It just is. It is what it is. And everybody goes through this. I get this from patients of all ages. And something brings it out, So a sudden dramatic illness of a loved one, sudden dramatic unexpected illness of a young person. Look, man, it's tough to be human. And so the reality is that I can't make this better. And so a lot of times this is why I'm using the Calm app where I go, yeah, this is never going to be a fix. I'm always going to wonder about this. So I roll over and I turn on the Calm app and I listen to ocean waves or rainfall. And if I can't shut off the thinking, I listen to a sleep story. Now, the interesting thing is you can hear a lot of skills in this. You can hear me using distraction right up front. You can hear me using comparison. You can hear me using the sensory skill. I'm filling my ears because it's a distraction. But the reality is all my use of skills is coming out of an understanding that there are just things in life you have to deal with. Like my patient with the ruined marriage, she's in this waiting game. In her version, it's a waiting game to get out of the marriage. And my version is a little more grim. But the idea is you use this strategy when you're kind of in a waiting game, when you're kind of stuck. You can't make everything better. You can't fix everything. And so when you can't fix it, for heaven's sake, don't make it worse. So, for example, I give myself a few minutes to go back to sleep, and if I get into the whole bad thinking rage, I realize if I lie here, I'm just going to make it worse. So I have to do something. I don't recommend this, but there are times where I just feel like I can't distract myself enough, and I'll read, or I will, well, to do that, I usually have to either leave the bed because my husband's asleep, or else I have to use my Kindle, and I'll do that. Sometimes I will, most of the time I listen to the sleep stories on the Calm app. But the idea is there's a certain giving up here, a certain letting go. I really can't fix this. I just have to wait it out. And like my patient, I may be waiting, I hope, many years to resolve my issue, to find out, say, how long do I live? No, but the idea is, I think this is why, of course, because it's my birthday also, that Seize the Day is coming so strongly to mind, because Seize the Day is about mindfulness and radical acceptance kind of rolled into one ball. And that's, of course, what I talked about in the last episode. But what I would really advise you to do is bring yourself to mindfulness in a bad situation. When you feel like everything is going to heck and you really can't succeed, you can't seem to engage all those skills, you may have to start by engaging the logic of this is really bad and I can't make it better. So what are you going to do? I'm going to do whatever it takes not to make it worse. And sometimes that may mean the skills only work for a minute or two, but that's better than no success at all. And you just have to keep plugging away at it. So I think in the if you can't make it better, don't make it worse strategy, you've got this wonderful rolling together of distress tolerance skills, but also of radical acceptance and of mindfulness. It brings you into this very moment to recognize, lousy moment. I think I'm going to do something else. Okay, but keep plugging at it, guys. I'd like to point out, too, I'm looking at the picture of Eleanor on the Cognitive Podcast website here, and I'm realizing how much I use my pets at moments like that, and also realizing how empathic they are. Minerva especially. When I get upset or when someone else gets upset, she usually runs to me and jumps up and lies pressed against me. That's how she comforts herself, but it also comforts me. I'm also going to point out, did you know that cats purr at the frequency that bones knit? So there is a recognition that cats purr to help you. It has long been observed that when one cat is injured, another cat will jump up, press herself against the injured cat, and purr. Cats seem to recognize that they heal with their purr. Minerva, she kind of holds back on that a little bit. But still, this is one reason we have our animals. And I guess that's the one distress tolerance skill. I'm trying to think, well, you could say it's sensory, that you pet and your hands feel that. But I think, too, the greatest distress tolerance skill of them all, and it's hard to fit it comfortably into all the abbreviations and rubrics, but the greatest distress comfort skill is to be in relationship, to contact someone you love, or if you're not doing that, to make contact with an animal and enjoy their company. That the feeling that someone else is with you is an enormous distress tolerance skill. And I think, where does that come in? It doesn't really. I can't think of anywhere in accepts or improve. You have to kind of push it in by saying it's sensory because you're listening on the phone, or it could be an activity, call your friend. But I feel like it should get more airtime than it gets. All right, enough of this madness. Moving on, put a lid on it. Well, it's been exciting this week in terms of the fact my son joined cross country at his school, and they have a lot of meets. And then he also joined a running club, which he's been in previously. What this comes down to is Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, Junior is out there running with his club. Wednesdays, he's at track meets for his school. And I believe I can't remember if it's Fridays or Saturdays, he's also doing the school meets. And all these things happen at 6 o'clock. Thursday nights are right out because I see patients till 7. The other nights, Mondays, I can go with them because I have Mondays off, although I'm usually talking to a friend at 7 o'clock that night on Zoom. But the other nights, I work till 5, and they have to be someplace by 6. So for me to get all my work done ain't going to happen. The result? Charcuterie. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The beloved spouse feels obligated to make me dinner on working nights, which is an agreement between us. And one of the nice things is, as a keto person, I would prefer to eat my heaviest meal in the middle of the day. Now, I fast intermittently most days, which means I stop eating at about 6 and I start again around 10 a.m. But really what happens is I don't start till 1. I don't start eating till 1. And dinner is often late around our house. So I finish dinner by like 7:30ish. So this fits really well into my keto world, that usually I get up in the morning and I have a cup of coffee or tea with some heavy cream, but nothing that I particularly have to work to digest. And I have an actual meal at my lunch break, which is usually 1 o'clock, on Thursdays 3 p.m. And then my husband makes something heavier for dinner, which I never feel like eating, because I'm just not really hungry in the evenings. I'm hungry 1 to 3, maybe 4 p.m.ish. So the lovely thing, there's a picture of one of my husband's charcuterie efforts there, where he took the blue cheese stuffed green olives that I order by the ton from Thrive Market, and some decent cheese. And then he got some deli roast beef slices and some fresh tomato. I think charcuterie, if you're Italian as I am, is actually another way of saying antipasto. Antipasto is actually before the pasta, nibblies, or without pasta, depending on what you think the ante means there. But the point is, yeah, it's a non-carbohydrate set of nibblies when it's done well. So there's my antipasto, or charcuterie for the more trendy name for it. And things that keto people like, well, almost everything keto is charcuterie. And so that's what makes it so nice for us. So, nicely sliced meats and cheeses and finger food veg, as long as it's not anything in the beans category. You have to be careful. The deadly nightshades like tomatoes apparently take you out of ketosis. So easy on those guys. Olives go great for it. Little bits of tuna, little chunks, sashimi, as far as I'm concerned. And nice things for it. Well, if you're going to use dips, you have to be careful. You can break out of the keto a lot there. But a good olive oil on the side is never a bad idea. So I guess what I'm saying, if I put a lid on it, I have a few more recipes from LCHF_Italian that I wanted to include, but I'm moving a little quick this week, so I thought I would show you my beautiful charcuterie plate and talk about that. Ah, shoot. Well, Fit Desk mileage, sad. What I'm not saying is I was beat this week. We had a fabulous last week. Our last weekend was my birthday, and I did Boku climbing, and this week I got one morning where I escaped to the climbing gym, which is hard for me to do. It opens at 10 a.m., and I usually have patients starting at noon on Thursdays, so that's a challenge. So the trick is to be there on the dot at 10 and to climb for an hour and roar home. And I realized this week I did not have time to shower, so I threw a nice top over my exercise bra and just cheerfully did my sessions. And then at lunch I took my shower. It was a little gross. I have to work on that scheduling. But the idea is I was exhausted. So when I came home, I ended up trying to do Fit Desk. Now, on top of it, good old Southern California Edison turned our power off. So the house was boiling hot, and it was cooler back in my bedroom where the Fit Desk is, which is a good standing desk. But I was tired, so I sat down. So the next thing you know, I'm pedaling. Pathetic. So no, not much on the Fit Desk mileage this week. It continues to be my buddy in my bedroom. That, and I still have the exercise ball, which I still use occasionally to plank. or to do other exercises like sit-ups. And I have some dumbbells, just one set, in my room. And the weights, I used to think were a little heavy for me. Actually, now I'm not so sure they're too heavy. So in case you're wondering, that's my home gym, is the exercise ball, the fit desk, and the weights. And that's not an expensive thing to do. If you're looking into a home gym, I really can't recommend an exercise ball with a good poster listing exercises you can do with it enough. It's been wonderful for me. If only I could find its air pump. But nevertheless, actually when they get a little squishy, they're still quite useful. Okay, so nothing on that. However, in the climbing, well, it's been pretty exciting. I put up the films on Instagram of me reaching the top, and I'm going to tell you, I think they're kind of boring to watch. I did solve the problems with moving them from my husband's Android format to Instagram to be IGTV films. And they're not that exciting to watch, but if you're me, I watch them over and over because I'm watching how I'm solving some of the problems. This week I got to run to the gym Wednesday morning. It was really unusual. I didn't have patients, and so I didn't have anybody till noon, and that was sad because then it was noon to 1 and then I had lunch break. Darn it. But I ran in and the gym was completely empty, and Howard, who was my teacher, said, "You got it all to yourself." Boy, was that great. I tried everything. Nobody was watching, no self-consciousness. I had so much fun. I have been doing the 5.5 paths really for strength more than anything else, but I started playing with the 5.6s and even the 5.7s. I used it as a baseline study to see, using the point system I described previously, how many points I could score. I don't remember what I got. I think I got 64. Because I was really taking on challenging stuff for me, and I was not worrying about getting to the top. I was just setting goals, and sometimes I wasn't even doing that. I was just seeing how high can I get. I don't think I got very high on any of them, but I have one in particular I'm trying to solve in the 5.6 range, and I got way higher than I'd gotten. I probably got my head about 20 feet off the ground, and I'm still working on that. And then there's a 5.7 that involves a turn where the original couple of foot placements are at an angle to the floor. It's about 45-degree angle, whereas you can put your hands on the part above it that is at 90 degrees to the floor. It's fairly easy to climb at 90 degrees. Once you tilt your feet away, ooh, that's work, because now you're pushing up and into the rock to hold your feet on the steps, but you have to do it. That the handholds on the 90-degree part around the bend, it's called an arete, a corner. Around the corner, the ones on the 90-degree part, the handholds, you can't get them unless your feet are on those lower footholds. So it is quite a workout. Well, I could not get around the arete with my feet, and I finally did it today, and I could only do it once, and I fell off. I mean, I really just ingloriously landed on my butt on the floor. Who cares? I've got a belaying harness. But it was amazing. So I've had 2 shots at doing the 5.6s and the 5.7s. And I realized, I can't get to the top. And then I realized I couldn't do that with the 5.5s in the beginning. That's just the way it works. I also had a great discussion with a climbing teacher today. She's not working for our gym, but she taught high school students how to climb. And she confirmed my worst fears, that it's not really about your arm strength, it's about your leg strength. With all my history of running, my legs are pretty strong, but you have to learn to get into these squat positions on the wall sometimes, and then stand up with your hands moving from over your head to about somewhere around your chest. In other words, your hands don't move at all. You stand up, and suddenly your hands are lower relative to your body than they were. And that takes some serious strength. Surprisingly, though, you don't pull yourself with your hands. You just use your hands to balance, and you lift yourself with your legs. So it is deep squatting. And when she told me that suddenly made me able to do a few higher handholds on all the 5.6s. So that's been pretty exciting today. So it's exciting that I'm working on these. And today I think I got my score up by adding up the last numbers, the last digits on the trail ratings. I think I got up to like a 60, somewhere between a 64 and a 69. I forget, I kind of lost count. But it was really cool. In the meantime, I did get a new harness. Where did I get my new harness? I bought the one at REI, and that didn't work, but it taught me how harnesses do work. My problem with the REI harness I got was it was a women's large in a range that doesn't have an extra large. And I fit the waist and I fit the thighs. What I didn't fit was the distance between the waist and the thighs because I am extraordinarily high-waisted. I went back to the REI website, and they don't really fit them to you in the store as far as I can tell. You just do it by waist size. So I went to another women's range, and I went to the men's ranges, and I found that I really can't remember the range I got, but there is a women's range with adjustable thigh loops that goes to an XL, in fact, even to an XXL, and the waist size was good for me. The previous one was, my waist size was just the largest it would stretch to. This range, my waist size was the smallest. So I can get a really nice tight fit, and the waist is balanced, so the right parts are in front of me and directly behind me, and it just about has enough room for me to get the waist to thigh length. Well, so the big thing is, as I've told you, the shoes are everything. The harness isn't. That the rental harnesses were just fine. Why do you get your own harness? The waistline is padded and more comfortable than the webbing on the rental harnesses. You don't have to keep sanitizing it after you go to the gym. It's yours. I just frankly have been hanging it in my room and not worrying about it. And so nobody else is using it. And also, when you belay down with it, it's comfortable because of the padding. And the fit is very tight. And when I put it on, I don't have to adjust the legs. The legs pretty much stay, the thigh pieces, where they are. I only have to adjust the waist. So I love it. I love the fit. It's got its own hangers on it to hang equipment off it. I do not do that. However, my chalk bag, the waistband for my chalk bag is very thin, and it goes nicely through the loop at the very back center, and that keeps the chalk bag centered over my left hip. So that's all working really well. And you can see a picture of me wearing my harness, and you can see Eleanor posing so beautifully in front of me, looking up at me, that it really makes the picture of me go to waste, because all you're going to look at is my beautiful dog. In Fluffy Books, I finished The Lady's Guide to Gossip and Murder, the second book in the Lady Harley series. And it was fun. They're still empty-headed and, yeah, all modern sentiments from the main characters. It's 21st century people wearing corsets, you know, and high collars. But I'm enjoying them. And I just started a fiance's guide to First Wives and Murder. I'm enjoying them. I finished Marivel by Rose Tremaine. I have to admit, I really liked Restoration and its sequel, Marivel. I keep telling myself why I shouldn't, but I really can't give good reasons. She really, really tries to write good period stuff, and she does a pretty good job. One of the things that is not evoked as well as I would like it to be is costume. That she mentions it offhand once or twice, but the Restoration was a period of excesses among the upper middle and upper classes. And part of the excessiveness was costume. And I think a lot more time could have been devoted to that, and a lot more action could have been dictated by it. If you know anything about historical costumes, you realize that furniture is based on costume, not the other way around. So when women start wearing these big bird cages around their hips, furniture becomes wide and seats become shallow and legs become lower on chairs. And that's only one example. You can see examples of this all over the place, and it's very worth noting. So I felt like Restoration was a chance to talk a bit more about that. By the way, in the Restoration, doors could become more narrow. However, after the Restoration, in the age of reason, I guess I would say, the 17th century and so on, doors have to become wider because of women's panniers. And it's just crazy. But I kind of like it when a writer is more sensitive to that. However, she ain't Diane Freeman. Diane Freeman writing the ladies' guides, in the Victorian age, just forget it. So I can't complain about Rose Tremaine. One of the things Rose Tremaine catches really well is the emotional intimacy of the relationship between servant and employer. And this is kind of hard for us to get. In the Victorian age, which obviously comes much later than these books are set, it becomes the standard to not know your servants and not particularly care too much for them once they retire, and to be very cold and authoritative with them. In earlier ages, servants were a very integral part of the household. They were cared for after their retirement, and they often had very intimate relationships with the families they worked for. So it's hard for us to remember that. And in the Victorian age, it comes close to slavery, not of the deeply unpleasant type like in the American South, but still, servants get very little life of their own till they retire, if they're lucky enough to live that long. And so the Victorians actually have a code of which servants you can be emotionally intimate with. Like if you're a wealthy woman, your lady's maid is going to be your intimate friend, but you still boss her around mercilessly. That qualification is invented because in previous eras, there was much closer relationships. And I do think that Rose Tremaine gets that in these books. I think she really evokes very well how servants really affect and change in some situations the life of the employer. So I really like that. And I think it's worth looking at. The other reason I think it's worth looking at too is actually part of our idea of racism. That I think that when you start enslaving Africans at the level particularly, look, Africans enslaved other Africans, but when Africans are brought to America, what the white people do is appalling, that, far more horrifying than is practiced in most forms of the world at that time. And I think that, in essence, once you start enslaving Africans, I'm trying to figure out which one comes first here, but it seems to me that once Africans are enslaved by Western Europeans and Americans, you create the possibility of the crazy stratification in the Victorian age where you devalue the relationship between employer and servant. And I think these things are related. I think it's a worthwhile thing to remember that you can be somebody's employee and act as a servant and have a place intimately in their household. And it's hard for us to even understand that because we have been so influenced by what was allowed to go on in Western European, and by the way, it may have been in Eastern European, I simply don't know. I don't know that history. At any rate, what I'm saying is it is fascinating to me that the history of Western European and North American slavery may actually be very influential and very intertwined with the way we look at employees. And it makes me wonder now, here in the corporate age, where basically employers are much more cold than they were even in my youth, I really wonder how much that has influenced us. And again, I really wonder how much we have as a culture devalued employees as a result, starting with employees in the more manual or menial jobs, but gradually working its way up into the corporate world. I can only wonder, there's a great book there. I'm not the one, there's a great research study. I'm not going to be the one who writes it, but I couldn't help wondering about this as I was thinking about the level of servants and employers in the Restoration era books I've been reading. Having said that, I will probably move on to Bait and Witch, which is the next one in that series by Angela Sanders. And I'm torturing myself because I believe I have another book in my Roman detective series that just came through and I haven't read it. All right, but that's enough for the fluffy books. Not so fluffy, huh? No, nothing is fluffy when you used to be a Renaissance scholar. Oh no. For my British friends, that was Renaissance scholar. I've Americanized it. Something I really like, well, I had to say it, the GoPro 7 camera. There are chirky little pictures of me wearing it on the show notes. Because the GoPro is so tiny, you can wear it on your head or on your chest. I have to say, I didn't put the links in because I have not explored all of what I bought. But you can go to Amazon and you can buy the chest mount or the headband mount for the GoPro from the lovely GoPro people for exorbitant amounts of money. Or you can buy cheap rip-offs. I bought this whole kit of mounts of different types and shapes, including the head and chest mounts, and also an underwater casing. I bought the whole thing for like $20. So if I can find a good link for that, I don't know if they still sell it, to be honest. But I am wearing an off-brand headband there, and it worked just great. And that is the camera I wore when I was filming myself climbing in those breathtaking, scintillating films where you simply see the wall and my hands moving around with occasional flashes to where my feet are going. But it's really great. Now, I will warn you, this is my second GoPro. The other one was donated to my beloved, who I think is going to train my son on it. I will warn you about the GoPros. They're not really user-friendly. They have sacrificed a lot to keep these things tiny. However, I'm not the most gifted user of computers. I'm pretty good for my age, to be honest. But I was able to work through a lot of it. Now, when you get the more recent GoPros, there's no instructions. They basically say, go here, download this app, and you go from there. And even on the app, it's not terribly user-friendly figuring out what you're supposed to be doing. However, figure it out I did. And it's really very simple and pretty straightforward. Some of the screens confuse me, how to get back and forth between the screens. But I think practice will make perfect on that one. However, I quite like the GoPro. Disadvantages. The app used to have a shutter trigger that you could put on your iWatch. That's gone. Boy, that's a loss. I hope they put it back. Because the problem with my GoPro was having no shutter trigger. I put it on photo mode, climbed to the top, and really was in a precarious place. I could have reached more easily into my jog bra and pulled out the shutter and clicked it, which is what I was able to do with my phone with my great little tripod. But I don't have a way to click the shutter on the GoPro. I have to reach up above my head and find the shutter button, which you wouldn't think is that hard, but it was surprisingly challenging. So GoPro, please give us a better shutter arrangement. Sure, there's a shutter I can use from my phone. However, then I have to pull my phone and carry my phone up and then use it. We need a little tiny disc shutter. I will probably search the internet to see if anything like that exists off-brand. But there is my GoPro. You can use it for photos, you can use it for videos, and you can also do time-lapse. So that's pretty cool. And then the app apparently has some good editing tools. I have not had much reason to use them because, frankly, I'm using all this on a card, a memory card in the computer, a little teeny one, SD card. And actually, I just stuck that in my laptop and transferred everything. And also, how did I send it to my iPhone? I was able to get it from my GoPro to my iPhone. And I can't remember what I did to do that. But it was very, very easy to transfer them. I'm just kind of stuck what I did, how I got it onto the iPhone from my memory card. At any rate, did I email it to myself? I'll have to go look at what you actually do with the app. I sent it to myself. Oh, yeah, probably. Oh, yeah, from the app. That's what I did. I just emailed it to myself and picked it up with my iPhone and copied it to my photos. Very easy, very manipulable. And I really, really like that. The app is good enough. And you can do some nice stuff there. And I really need to explore things more. But something I really like today is my GoPro 7. It's about $199. These things are easy to get on Amazon. And I'm pretty happy with them. And it takes my photography to a whole new level, I think. All right. So meanwhile in the blather, well, the straightforward stuff. Tomorrow morning, I get my eyes dilated for the routine check for diabetes, see if it's ruining my retinas. I doubt it is because my sugar is not in the diabetic range. But, you get that done. I'm not sure what happens next if it is ruining my retinas. I guess, I don't know. Well, I'm not going to be morbid. I was morbid enough earlier. But I also get my second shingles vaccine. I'm very scared. My first one was rocky. It was not easy to take. It was not extreme pain. It was actually in the range of discomfort. What bothered me was it was uncomfortable for about 48 hours. And then it was just kind of popping up here and there for the next 2 weeks. So I'm not really looking forward to this. However, it is better than getting the real thing. And you only got to do this once. And so I am wondering if I'll be seeing patients on Tuesday or if I'll be taking the day off sick. To be honest, even though I really don't want to lose the money, I'm probably going to take the day off sick because I doubt I'm going to be able to focus on my patients. But I do get my second shingles vaccine, and I am up to getting my COVID booster, and I'm looking into ways to get that. Originally, I thought we weren't going to get it till October. I didn't think it was going to be available till October, but it seems that it is. So I'm going to talk to my doc about getting that to happen too. So that's some pretty exciting stuff. I'm not touching the COVID booster till I'm well past the shingles, let me tell you. There's only so much grief in 1 month I can take. But I'm really happy because that will bring me up to date on flu, COVID, and shingles. And that's the end of shingles vaccines, which is what I have to keep repeating to myself. If you're diabetic, they tell you to get one right in the beginning. They don't fool around, that you're going to be at high risk for it. So, yeah. And in the meantime, I have the re-entry blues that this week was just hard for no reason. My patients were great. It was hard because it's hard to get back. Strangely, my re-entry blues took the form of bad sleep. So last night, bless my husband, everybody left me alone and I slept for 12 hours. And I'm so grateful because I just could not settle down and sleep. And in a way I didn't want to, which worries me a little bit. That's kind of a sign of burnout. I don't feel particularly burnt out. I think it was more that I was trying to recover more time off because I'm still getting used to being back to work full time. I am very fortunate in my caseload. I have a really nice bunch of people right now. Nobody is too tough. And right before my vacation, I lost 2 of my tough ones. And one of my remaining, she's not tough, but she's kind of unpleasant. I think she's going to quit on me, or I'm going to ask her to go because it's not what I think either of us thinks it should be. So that's kind of good. And I just took on a new person and I quite like her. So it's been pretty good. The caseload is really pretty good. But the reentry blues are a real thing. And you have to be careful. The reason I'm mentioning this, when people quit their jobs, their long-term jobs, it's usually because of reentry after a good vacation. That's why I want to point this out to you. Don't let it happen to you. And then meanwhile, I did start planning for Stitches West in Sacramento in 2022 in February. In March 3rd to 6th, I believe. And also for Sunnybank 2022, which is a lot more daring because I'm really hoping that plane flights will be safer. For Sacramento, there is a high chance I'll drive it, but we'll have to see. I may fly it. But a SAC flight isn't hard. It's time-consuming to get to the airplane, but, basically you get down to Burbank Airport and you fly for an hour and you're there. And it's really not much of a big deal. Sacramento isn't the worst drive from where I live, but it's the kind of drive like San Jose where I'd rather do it as an overnighter. I'd rather drive north, stay in a decent hotel, and then drive again. I don't want to arrive wiped out, but that would be an extra night off. So I'm looking at it. For both of them, I looked at hotels. Now, SAC, I probably already have a room, but I think it just made me, I don't know why, it just made me feel sort of on top of things because I'm not looking at airlines yet. So anyway, I'm happy to say Stitches West in 2022, as long as they don't cancel, it seems like a go. And I'm very excited about that. And Sunnybank 2022, I'm just going to act like it's a go. And it's nice because I can get the room for free, which is no small thing, at a really nice suite hotel by Marriott out there in New Jersey. I do not know why the rooms are so cheap there when they're so much more expensive here, but I'm really, really happy about it. They're cheap in terms of points, not in terms of cost, let me tell you. And so that's nice because it means I'm not going to use points. When I get hotel rooms for the next few months, should I get them, I'm going to pay out of pocket to build up my hotel points. But that makes me happy, and that leads me on to the really exciting thing, rediscovered stash. I was trying to find some yarn. Honestly, I can't even remember what yarn I was... Oh yeah, I was trying to find a lone skein of Malabrigo in Plomo in worsted weight. And I said, oh yes, well it's out in the big ottoman, which has storage in it, in the living room. It wasn't, however, a real treasure trove of goodies was. And I suddenly remembered that at one point I loaded up the ottoman with the yarn I wanted to use in my next few projects, and then promptly got distracted and didn't use it up. And so, oh my goodness, the trove in the ottoman, sensational. Shawl yarns, sock yarns, oh my heavens, so beautiful. So that was really, really exciting. Also exciting, I found some tools. I found a Lazy Kate. I found some nice knitting project bags, which I really needed. I need something in the range for smaller sweaters. I have great ones for big sweaters, but I don't like to carry the big carriers around that much. I like to carry the smaller ones till the sweater gets past the sleeve divide. So I found those. So it was so exciting. I'll see if I can get a picture into the show notes. But it was just a joy. One of the other things I found was the TARDIS blue yarns. I had some, I believe, in worsted and in sock yarn. I made a hat for Twin Face in the worsted, but she wanted TARDIS socks. I wasn't able to get them to work really well, but I still have the yarn, and she can at least have plain socks in the TARDIS blue. I don't know. We'll see. She's been very resistant to the idea of socks because she says her feet are too big. We'll find out how that works. But rediscovered stash. Finally, Minerva gets the last word. No, she doesn't. You know who gets it is Roxy Pony, because y'all haven't seen Roxy in a while. And I was looking through my various pictures, and there was Roxy doing a selfie. And it really is. I had it must have been my tablet out for her to be able to do it. And she just leaned over and hit the shutter and took a picture of herself. So there's Roxy doing a selfie. And I just couldn't resist it. Minerva, she's been really cranky. I'm not sure what's going on there. She was asking me to pet her, and she turned around and stuck a claw in me. And I thought, we might have to look into these claws, because it's been 3 years and we've done all the tricks, and she really isn't allowing herself to accept restrictions on her clawing. She is pretty good about not doing the furniture, but she goes after people. And I think she's just klutzy more than anything else. I don't think she means to do harm, but I don't know. It's a very difficult thing to live with. The other odd thing was Eleanor was greeting her today, and she just whacked Eleanor a good one. Now, the good news about Eleanor is she's a collie and she has huge fur. But I suddenly realized if she's going to whack her in the face, I'm going to be a little worried about Eleanor taking eye damage. And again, my other cats have not done this with our dogs. They very, very rarely threatened a dog. And it makes me a little nervous that Minerva and those claws are misbehaving. So I'm a little worried about that. So rather than worry about that, I'm going to have me a good think about what we do. But in the meantime, Roxy got the last word, because when I came home today, I saw this picture, and it was right after I got out of the car, and Roxy, down by the corral, not at mealtime, raised her head and just whinnied cheerfully to me. And I thought, oh, how the whinny of a good pony makes one's day. So there we are, kids. That's an awful lot of stuff. But hopefully I will get this edited and mounted, and we'll get back to the Saturday releases at noon, and the notes are done, so maybe I'll release those a little early. So in the meantime, it's just a shot. It's just a mask. As President Biden put it this week, what are you waiting for? It's been approved by the FDA. We have such a huge death toll. And the answer is some people are antisocial. Just saying. Okay, so please remember that a lot of people cannot get vaccinated even though they want to. Kids under 12, people with compromised immune systems. please remember, a lot of people out there really want to get vaccinated. And in a terribly literal sense, some of them are dying to get vaccinated. Please remember those of us who can get vaccinated, those of us who can wear masks. And I'm sorry, I really don't buy it about 99% of the time when people say they have a medical condition and they can't. Because I've got a medical condition and I do. I'm sorry. It's just that they're not comfortable. Please remember, though, the good people who really do deserve our compassion and support. Please get your vaccination. Whatever the reason you've waited, please get your vaccination. Please wear your mask. Please wash your hands. Please socially distance responsibly. Because after all, the name of the game is to stay safe and take care of each other. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.